afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How we doing today? All right, listen. I'm going to need a little help. I don't know how to refer to everybody. I know that we all have a bunch of nicknames that we've been given over the past couple years. Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, likes to call us the dregs of society. Crooked Hillary likes to call us deplorable. That's my personal favorite. But I think we should tell the truth a little bit here today. This is a rally that's meant to speak truth about the Constitution and its meaning and its purpose and its significance. We're not here because we're rejects or deplorables or the dregs of society or these real awful people that, the media and the left want to, they want to convince us that we're the worst people to walk the earth, right? That we're not here because of that. We're here because, in a sense, we are all constitutional soldiers on the front lines of the battle to save our republic. We're patriots. We're patriots. And we wouldn't have it any other way. So before we kick it off, I'd like to recognize just how we all got here. Now, there are two individuals who are specifically involved in organizing this event today, Valerie Ragucci and James Baird. Now, Valerie is one of our organizers, and she's been a lifelong resident of Connecticut who currently resides in Southington. Did I pronounce that correctly? Southington. I'm sorry, from Long Island. I have no idea.
Perfect.
As a wife, a busy working mom of 3 children, and a political activist, Valerie represents the conservative American mom. Now, this is somebody, the conservative American mom, that has been diluted over the years. The left wants to take the significance of being a good American mother and flush it, basically. She's tired of watching this country be destroyed by Democrat policies. She believes we need to take an active stance in education in order to restore our republic to its original intent with faith in God, family, and love of country. And that's Valerie. Now, James Baird is a resident of Vernon, Connecticut. Did I pronounce Vernon correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And a proud patriot and safety officer for the Connecticut militia. James served in the United States Marine Corps. Let's hear it for our veterans, by the way. Any veterans in the audience? We deeply, deeply appreciate your service to the country, as well as serving a total of 10 years as a volunteer firefighter. He never entered into any politics because, as he put it himself, it is a corrupt system and he would have been kicked out. But what he does support is freedom, liberty, our Constitution, and a country run by we, the people. These two patriots have devoted their time and energy to serving and saving our country. So let's show our appreciation to them for organizing this rally today and continuing to make a difference in these very important times.
How's everybody doing?
Great.
All right, thank you all for coming. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. So I went to a Patriot Network Summit in Dougspur, Virginia in last April, and I got inspired. There's a lot of patriots there, a lot of good people, met a lot of great people, and so I got back home and got inspired. I decided to Citizens of America started as a Facebook page, and look at it now. So our goal is to go town to town and keep doing this until we either get our message across or something changes. So that's what we're all about. I'm going to hand it over to Valerie. Again, thank everybody for coming. Have a good time.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So, good afternoon. And welcome to our second Constitutional and Voting Awareness Rally here in the awesome town of Southington. I've been a resident for 17 years, and I'm proud to call this town my home. I wanted to take a moment to thank the Parks and Rec Department, Planning and Zoning, and the Southington Police Department for their cooperation and support in making this rally possible. Our first rally was this past summer in Vernon, Connecticut, and we had a blast. And as citizens of America, we plan to continue making our way across Connecticut, educating and inspiring patriotism. Our hope is that each of you will take something you've learned today and share it with your family and friends. Thank you for your participation. It means a lot to have you all here. You are part of the change that we need in America. Thank you.
One more time, let's give it up for Valerie and James. All right, one thing I know is that the modern-day Democrat Party is largely devoid of anything resembling a moderate or even, dare I say, reasonable person. Of course, there are a few exceptions, but they can only dream about a passionate group like this group, showing up real hardworking, and let's specifically say hardworking Americans, patriotic Americans coming together to rally for them. We don't see the Democrats pulling together a bunch of people, right? Listen, I'm from Long Island. I was brought here from another connection. I probably wouldn't do that if I was supporting Elizabeth Warren. I'm just going to be honest, okay? Now, they don't see this happening for the Democrats. It doesn't happen. This is what it's like to be involved in one of the largest grassroots organizations, one of the largest grassroots movements since our country won its independence. They'll never taste it. And they never should. So I'm going to ask all of you to savor this, cherish this. This is special. We are all special. Make no mistake, this movement is special. It's no longer just a political debate. This is an attack on all that we hold dear. They have gone off the deep end. They're unhinged. They're looking to impeach anything that moves. They intimidate and use their positions of power as weapons to silence folks like you, like me, like all of us. They've disregarded the very reason why we are here. They've cast aside the Constitution. They've cast aside the Bill of Rights. They've cast aside the founding principles listed in the Declaration of Independence because it is the Constitution and it is those founding principles that restricts their power. Yes, we're in a blue state, but that doesn't matter. We're going to kick this party off the only way we know how. Look at our great flag. Who loves our great flag? It's time to get this started, and we have someone who's going to do just that. Ladies and gentlemen, please give, and I quote our president, a high-energy, not low-energy, Jeb, a high-energy welcome to Ashley Baird, who is going to be singing our great national anthem for us today. So please rise. We don't take knees here. Please rise, take off your hats, and join us in the singing of our Star-Spangled Banner. Ashley Baird.
Oh, see, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night is still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Give it up for Ashley Baird. That was fantastic. That was fantastic. That was something else. That's really good. That was awesome. Patriots Our Country was founded on the idea that the people, you, me, everyone that we encounter on a day-to-day basis would elect representatives who would act on our behalf. They would make decisions about policies and laws that would directly affect us, and because they represented us and not a group or entity that says, not a group of entity that says so, but does otherwise, they'd make the best possible decisions on those policies and legislation. Unfortunately, today, that's not the case, as we have seen with the swamp, both nationally and locally. Oh, the screen turned off. Sorry. They're acting on the behalf of others, with your money, with my money, with everybody else's money. They're taking everybody's money out of your pocket. They're acting on behalf of people we don't necessarily want them to act on behalf of. Our next speaker is going to touch on an issue that closely follows the idea that taxation is indeed theft, especially when taxation is not the only money grab that we have to endure. It's my pleasure to introduce a great man who retired from the Army Reserve as a lieutenant colonel and decided to continue to fulfill his oath to support and defend the Constitution by founding the Connecticut Republican Assembly. With the help of the GI Bill, he recently earned his master's degree in public policy from Liberty University. In 2018, he was the campaign manager for Representative Bill Szymanski, who won re-election. He is an active member of Granby Republican Town Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow patriots, please welcome Mark Anderson.
You'll hear many inspirational speeches today. I was going to say this won't be one of them. But what I mean by that is I'm going to talk briefly. I'm going to be brief and practical. You're going to hear a lot of inspirational speeches that follow me, and you're going to have a feeling in your heart, I need to do something. The Connecticut Republican Assembly is one answer for some of you, maybe, how you can do something. A well-known Connecticut conservative who happens to live in this town said to me, the problem with the Tea Party is every meeting is like the first. So the question is, how do we sustain, continue to connect with each other to effect change in this state? The Republican Assembly was founded in California in 1932. He was instrumental in Goldwater's presidential campaign and to elect Ronald Reagan governor of California. The National Federation of Republican Assemblies was formed in 1997. It's now active in 20 states. In 2015, they had a big convention in Nashville. On August 29th, Donald J. Trump gave his first speech to a Republican organization, and Star Parker said it really helped launch him on the stage, be taken seriously by Republicans, not just the grassroots, who already were taking him seriously. In 2017, I went to the convention in Mesa, Arizona. I was really impressed how professional they were. That weekend, they formed a bond with the American Conservative Union, who put on CPAC. In 2 weeks, I'm going to the convention in Atlanta, and again, American Conservative Union will be part of that, and I'll have 3 others from Republican Assembly going with me. The Republican Assembly, to be a member, requires you to be a registered Republican, to agree on 13 principles, and pay a small initiation fee. We have the registered trademark, the Republican wing of the Republican Party. Just to give the titles of the 13 principles, Unalienable rights, Judeo-Christian foundation of moral law, self-government, parental rights and education, free enterprise, public policy which supports the traditional family, sanctity of life, a strong national defense, the right to keep and bear arms, growth-oriented tax policy, victims' rights, national sovereignty, and finally, decentralized government. We're now forming local chapters. They can be any precinct size. We're putting an initial target as counties. This coming Wednesday, October 2nd, we're going to have a meeting where you can eat dinner and listen and discuss in Windsor. It'll be to form a Hartford, Litchfield, Tolland County chapter. Now, you maybe ask yourself, what is the function of the Republican Assembly? Why should I be part of it? Our president, Willis Lee, who's also second vice president of the NRA, describes the Republican Assembly as the special forces of the Republican Party. Senator Markley is a member of, former Senator Markley of the Connecticut Republican Assembly, and he has really encouraged me, said we have the potential to be the clearinghouse for conservatives, grassroots conservatives in Connecticut. Because we're a formal organization, some of the things we've been able to do is we were one of 10 participants in December 2017 of gubernatorial speed dating, where all the governor candidates were willing to come, jump from table to table. We got to ask them questions to get to know their positions better. We held an endorsing convention in June 2018. We endorsed Tim Hurst only by one vote, and it was right here. I attended a rally right on the screen. It was very close with Stefanowski in our endorsement, but several of our candidates have run for office, including Senator Markley ran for lieutenant governor. A couple have run for state rep, and many have run for local office. Also, we put together a Republican conservative luncheon in January 2019 that several of you are here present were there. And at this event, Senator Markley gave a very inspirational speech, which is on our Facebook page. It's pinned at the top. And we did a panel with the members of the Conservative Caucus about how we can better help them as citizens fight bad legislation and support good legislation. A couple of panel members are here. Senator Sampson was part of that panel, as well as, I have to get the pronunciation, Gail, as well as Representative Mastro Francesco. So she was part of that panel. That panel inspired, I would say, 2 or 3 dozen instances of our members submitted written and oral testimony, which had people who had never done it before, including pro-gun, pro-life, against Jane Bate, who's here, her issue, female genital mutilation. She continues to fight that issue, making that illegal. Next January, the first Saturday in January, Matt O'Brien will be our main speaker, and we're going to have a panel on understanding inner-city voters. So I hope you'll keep the first Saturday in January on your calendar. Consider attending. But basically, we are broad spectrum. We're Republican, and you heard the 13 issues. But what that does is it gives us a tie to single issue groups. We see anyone who agrees with us even on one issue as an ally. I see Jane Bate is here with Act for America. She's one of the top leaders of that. She was also a founding member, I'm honored to say, of the Republican Assembly. We consider like the Catholic Public Affairs to be an ally. CCDL, I'm happy to see them here. We consider the Republican Party to be an ally, both the state party and the local RTCs, Family Institute of Connecticut, Connecticut Parents Union, the homeschoolers, the No Tolls group. I see Hillary's here. Where is she? I call her the pretty face of No Tolls. That's probably politically incorrect to say. The Oath Keepers are allies, all the pro-life groups, all the Tea Party groups, Yankee Institute, and groups like You're Citizens of America. We all, whether you join us or not, we consider you allies. Now, speaking of the different groups, when the new year came, I asked myself, how do I want to spend my time? What one issue could the legislator, what bill could they pass that would do the most harm, would be the hardest to undo? And I felt it was the no tolls. Once stopping tolls. Once you spend hundreds of $1 millions to put in these stanchions, then the excuse is they're there and they're just not going to come down. So many, many people, Facebook friends and elected Republicans thought tolls are going to go through. We cannot stop them. And here we are. The session's over. There's no tolls. And they can't put together, they've been unable to get the votes to put together a special session. So James, allowed me to speak a little on the no tolls. Under my speech, I have a petition. If you haven't signed it yet, but I bet most of you have. I also have 5 no toll songs left not sold. If you're interested, see me after. Finally, if you'd like to join the Republican Assembly or want more information, catch me after this rally. I have some papers. I hope you found this a little inspirational, not too long, but very practical. Thank you and God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mark Anderson. Patriots have alluded to this idea a couple of times already today, that we are indeed under attack. It was Thomas Jefferson who said that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, human life is the most sacred gift that any of us can be blessed with, or bless another with, is under attack. Liberty. The word has become more synonymous with the statue than the very idea listed in Jefferson's Declaration. Liberty is under attack. The pursuit of happiness, that quest for what we know and we refer to as the American dream, is under attack. These attacks come from a radical pack of political wolves who have disregarded what is meant to keep them in line. Our Constitution is meant to restrict the power, size, reach, and scope of our government. It has been manipulated in ways that invert its purpose, and in some cases, even weaponize it. This is due largely to the lack of awareness of what our Constitution actually stands for. It's why we're here, and it's why our next speaker is so important. Our next speaker is a lifelong Connecticut resident who became politically active in 2007, beginning with his membership in the Tea Party movement. He has since become a proponent of states' rights and the original intent of the United States Constitution. Through years of research, study, and discussion, he has become knowledgeable of the role of our ever-expanding and overreaching government in our state and nation's decline. He's excited to share with you his love of our Constitution and his ideas to motivate others to action. Patriots, please welcome Mark Conrad.
How you doing? Good to see everyone here. Gotta get a little ready here.
You upgraded from paper.
Yeah, this won't blow away, but I still gotta figure out how to work it. And then I gotta put on my Liberty glasses so I can see clearly. Wish they had those, right? All right, well, I'm Mark Conrad. We're here to discuss our Constitution, actually our constitutions. Each state has its own constitution. Understanding of your state constitution is just as important, if not more important, to restore the balance of power to our republic. And we must first realize what we have now is not the limited federal government that we stipulated in America's highest law. We are facing an ever-expanding, overreaching, and over-regulating federal government. That is not how it was designed. So many have come to hold the attitude, that's the government. What can you do? We the people are the highest office in our self-governance. We can and must take rightful control. Understand that the Constitution was written for us, for the people. It's not a mysterious document for scholars, judges, lawyers, and politicians. It's ours, we must learn it, and we must learn to live by it. We cannot have limited government if we continually turn to those in government whenever there's a problem. Government servants will always take the opportunity to expand their authority. By asking for help, we are encouraging that expansion, and we pay for it. with increased taxes and decreased liberty. We surrender control of our lives and independence to our government. We have, for the most part, been improperly taught our own history, and in particular, our founding and the principles behind our Declaration of Independence and Constitution. The two documents are intimately connected. The Declaration states the reason for our claim of independence and the principles to be established for our self-governance. It states, in part, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, from us, the people. The Constitution is the law that we established for the operation of our federal government as determined by the governed, us, the people. It authorizes through our states, with our consent, for specifically delegated powers to be administered on our behalf. The Constitution was drafted to replace the Articles of Confederation in order to establish a more perfect union for the people of the United States. The Constitution is a contract between the states which establishes our federal government, its authority, and its limitations. Our federal government, for a long time now, has failed to follow the law, that is the Constitution, or adhere to the principles in the Declaration of Independence. It's overreaching, overbearing, and it is overwhelming the states who created it. We have allowed for a federal empire to emerge and rule over 50 colonies. The legislative branch unconstitutionally delegates its authority to the other branches, as well as to unelected, appointed officials in unconstitutional agencies and federal bureaucracies. It is no longer the voice of the people or the states in the federal government, but a messenger to them from federal rulers. Congress works to restrict our rights rather than protect them, and to change the structure of government by writing law rather than through amendment. The executive branch. The executive branch becomes more king-like as it assumes the powers and accepts authority illegally delegated to it. These appropriated powers are both supported and criticized based on political party. There is no real attempt to check this expansion, as each party wants that power for itself. The judicial branch has become activist through legislating from the bench. The Supreme Court has become the self-proclaimed arbiter of the Constitution and all things constitutional. It has become an oligarchy, as Thomas Jefferson warned. In a letter to William Jarvis in September of 1820, he wrote, "The Constitution has erected no such single tribunal, knowing that whatever hands confided with corruptions of time and party, its members would become despots. We must learn our rights, our role in government, and most importantly, the actual limited role of the federal government in our private lives and businesses. We must learn the true role of our states as the creators of the federal government to be an ultimate check on federal authority. We must understand that what we have now is not a union of sovereign, independent states that came together as partners to ordain and establish the contract for the United States known as the Constitution. We have become a collection of subservient federal provinces. James Madison said in Federalist 45, "The powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which are to remain in the state government are numerous and indefinite. The powers reserved to the states will extend to all objects in which the ordinary course of affairs concern the lives, liberties, properties of the people, and the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. The only way to restore the proper role of our federal government is to restore the proper role of our states." Connecticut has a place in history as one of the first colonies to stand against tyranny and fight for liberty. One of the 13 original states to declare independence from the state of Great Britain. Connecticut is now a bastion of big government and socialist policies. We have become subservient to federal control. Connecticut was the home of Roger Sherman at the time of our founding. He was a representative of Connecticut at the Philadelphia Convention and instrumental in the ratification of the Constitution. It is Sherman's stated belief that no laws bind the people but such as they consent to be governed by. In contrast to a representative of Roger Sherman's character, those who claim to represent Connecticut today promote programs and policies outside the delegated authority of the federal government and work to establish federal supremacy over the states. We now have 2 U.S. senators and numerous representatives who are criminal in their continuing efforts to regulate our right to keep and bear arms in direct opposition to the protection of the Second Amendment. Furthermore, they promote red flag laws. These are insidious, destructive pathways to the removal of our liberty. Red flag laws or extreme risk protection orders and the TAPS Act not only violate the protections of the Second Amendment, but the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th as well. From warrantless, unreasonable search and seizure, deprivation of liberty and property without due process, denial of the right to face one's accuser, to a trial by jury of one's peers, and the imposition of excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment. Once again, I like to refer to the wisdom of Thomas Jefferson. The government closest to the people serves the people best. Your town government should be the most important to you and have the most influence on you, followed by county, then state, finally, in those specifically delegated areas, the federal government. Within our own state government, the control exerted on our lives, businesses, finances, and communities is overreaching and excessive. The state has undue influence on local education, budgets, land management, social programs, just to name a few. The state of Connecticut has passed the largest tax increase since the income tax, for the 3rd time since 2011. These are tax increases with spending increases that do not address the excessive waste in our state government. It is up to us to hold our representatives responsible for reasonable and appropriate application of the citizens' money which they collect through taxes. The state has passed unconstitutional gun laws and red flag laws, laws that violate the Constitution of the state of Connecticut. And it continues to work towards enacting more of these laws. In Article 1, Section 15 of our Constitution, it is stated, every citizen has the right to bear arms in defense of himself and the state. There is no limitation on what type of arm, the capacity of said arms, so therefore the restrictions of such is unconstitutional. In Article 1, Section 7, it says, the people shall be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and possessions from unreasonable searches or seizures, and no warrant to search any place or to seize any person or thing shall issue without describing them as nearly as possible, nor without probable cause supported by oath or affirmation. No provision is made to supersede this for concern of a person's well-being or a suggestion of fear of safety of others. The Constitution of the State of Connecticut declares in Article 1, Section 2, all political power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit. They have at all times an undeniable and indefeasible right to alter their form of government in such a manner as they may think expedient. It is up to us, the people of Connecticut, to stand up against violation of our Constitution and to the violations against the U.S. Constitution being supported by our misrepresentatives to the federal government. The states, as creators of the federal government, must be the final check on federal overreach. The people must ensure the states regain control of our federal government by re-establishing constitutional lawful sovereignty of their states and electing representatives who hold to those principles. So who are we waiting for? This is our state, and we must take rightful control of it. We must educate ourselves and begin the work of restoring our liberty. We did not get here overnight. It will take time to restore what we have lost and what we have given away. But don't let that discourage you. Look at Ben Franklin for your example. He began his efforts in the fight for liberty at age 16, writing as Silence Dogood. He was 81 when he was a delegate at the Constitutional Convention. The problems we are facing today are due to our failure to follow the Constitution. The fight to hold on to original intent was already taking place in the 1820s, as expressed by Thomas Jefferson, who said, "The recent recall to our first principles, however, will, I hope, be heard and obeyed." In an appeal to his contemporaries, he said, "Yet be not weary of doing well. Let the eye of vigilance never be closed." We have wearied. We have let our eyes close. Now is time for renewed vigilance. I appeal to all of you now to become involved in any way possible, educating ourselves and sharing what we learn, to attending rallies and events, to contacting your representatives, writing testimony to and for or against legislation, and to the people we choose to represent us, and even to holding public office ourselves. We must speak out now. We must act now. As Patrick Henry said, should I keep back my opinions at such time through fear of giving offense, I should consider myself as guilty of treason towards my country and an act of disloyalty to the majesty of heaven. Thank you.
I couldn't tell you where he is.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mark Conrad. This topic, I'm just going to briefly, his topic is so important, and there are so many people in the country that just don't understand the significance of what he said, on how important it is for us at the state level, at the local level, to hold government and our elected officials accountable and responsible to make sure that they are acting on our behalf. So once again, Mark, that was just fantastic and extremely important. Remember, it's not about convincing, this is what everybody know Dan Bongino? Yeah. It's not about convincing the liberal, it's about convincing those who are listening to us try to convince the liberal. And what Mark said, it's common sense, and it's going to resonate with the country if we continue to spread what he just was talking about. So, thank you, Mark. As we move along today, I'd like to ask a favor, although asking for favors these days usually means you're about to get impeached again. According to the Democrats, asking for favors is a high crime or a misdemeanor or something, that what they want to tell you about. But I'll just go ahead and do it anyway. I'd like it if you can keep in mind the times that we're in right now. It's been said in the past, not even the past few years, far beyond that our country is at stake. How many times we've heard our country is at stake? The founding principles are at stake. The Constitution is at stake. These phrases and talking points have been delivered to you by those who repeatedly trample these very ideas. It's disgusting, despicable, that despite these egregious offenses of protections granted to us by our own Constitution, these offenders continue to water down, dilute, and oftentimes politically shred the very fabric of our sacred republic. The following speaker is an outspoken conservative activist and is the chairman of the Coventry Republican Town Committee, a member of the CTRA, NRA, CCDL, and holds a bachelor's in business economics and finance from the University of Connecticut. He is running for town council this year in his hometown. He and his wife recently welcomed their first child, Nathaniel, who was born just a short time ago on June 29th. He is a successful financial advisor and is the co-founder of TPAC 2020, a federal super PAC dedicated to the re-election despite what they want to do, of President Donald J. Trump. He is a strong conservative, constitutional advocate, and has been intimately involved with Connecticut politics on the state and local level. Most recently, he ran for chairman of the Connecticut Republican Party and received excellent grassroots support. And let me just say, when you're receiving grassroots support from people that you live with and that you talk to, that's the best way. Remember, a government closest to the people is the best government, as Mark just had cited Thomas Jefferson. Always a good person to cite. As a conservative activist, he has worked hard to help Republicans across the state become elected and roll back the damaging tax increases, regulatory oppression, and economic slowdown caused by Democrat policy. He believes that the Connecticut Republican Party should seek a high level of activity and begin to educate and inspire the political leaders of tomorrow. Patriots, please join me in welcoming Matt O'Brien.
Thank you very much. This is a beautiful venue. I'm so glad we could all be here today. I like that sign over there. The left cares about their party. The right cares about our country. It says it all right there. Yeah, please. Good afternoon, Patriots. 243 years ago, 13 small British colonies boldly stood together with one voice and declared that they would no longer be subjects to anyone. They would oppose in war the greatest global superpower the world had ever known. And they would form a new nation with an important and radical central belief that all men are created equal, and because of that, no person would rule over any other. The people themselves would be free to pursue absolutely any path that they would choose for their lives. And they would be the masters of their own government, their own destiny. Since 1775, 1,354,000 Americans have given their lives in defense of American sovereignty, American exceptionalism, and America's right to exist in freedom. At times, the price for that freedom has been high. But we've never been unwilling to pay that price. America is a miracle. If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we have prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and ensured here than on any other place on earth. That's Ronald Reagan. The right will never accept socialism. And the left will accept nothing less. Be prepared. Those on the left will never allow a Trump victory, even should we win the popular vote and the Electoral College. The left will go absolutely insane, deploying every insurance policy weapon at their disposal to undermine the president. Antifa, the military arm of the Democrat Party, has not spent the last 3 years practicing and organizing merely to sit on the sidelines. They have used the time to mobilize and learn tactics while probing to find out what government will allow, media will trumpet, and the public will endure. The skirling resistance has morphed from pajama boy blobs of perpetually offended little dictators and pussy hat sporting screamers into balaclava wearing Avengers who crave the opportunity to put deplorables in their place and give you the government they think you deserve, good and hard. They will flood the streets after a Trump victory in their Antifa costumes, looking to bust the heads of anyone near enough to become part of their 15 minutes of YouTube fame. Be prepared. Riots will begin in liberal cities, including in Connecticut, where political leadership will provide them a measure of protection against identification and arrest. Antifa will be called the new founding fathers by the media. Blood will be spilled. China, Iran, Russia, and Venezuela will plead for calm and offer to mediate the ever-evolving humanitarian crisis. Be prepared. Should Trump not be re-elected, the new president will issue executive orders throwing open our borders, banning fossil fuels, and of course implementing common-sense gun control. They will start with universal background checks and a gun registry. Eventually, the new president will overreach, signing an executive order of gun confiscation, euphemistically called mandatory buybacks. I don't remember ever buying my guns from the government. Antifa will be tasked with flooding the streets in support of seizing these weapons of war. Media will declare it's the will of the people. For the right, that will be the last straw. We will not allow America to go quietly into the night. For once Obama will have been proven correct. Americans do cling to their guns. Be prepared. We face a new kind of enemy today. Everything we value is under attack. This new generation of Democrats seek a socialist nation. A nation that desires to take our homes, jobs, health, rights, families, and liberties, and make us wards of the state, casting us into shells of our former selves, irrelevant participants in our own lives. And it is then that we will lose our freedom. I'm not willing to lose any more freedom. We must realize that no arsenal or weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon that our adversaries, both abroad and here at home, do not have and cannot understand. It is a weapon that we as American patriots do have. How do we fight back? Today we're graced with living under ROL, or rule of law. Our system, however dysfunctional and sometimes corrupt, is still working, thank God. In Connecticut, we must continue to find leaders to run for office who are willing to put their name on the line at risk of being humiliated, scorned, ridiculed, for those among us unable to speak for themselves. Where are the future leaders of Connecticut? Because we need you to step forward now. We're suffocating. This is what it feels like to lose freedom. I'll summarize our common purpose here today. It is the very same purpose that our founders had 243 years ago. Freedom from government and American sovereignty. We have every right to have a nation, uphold the Constitution, defend our borders from foreign invasion, speak freely our opinions without fear, live in peace, reject globalism, and exercise our unalienable right to bear arms and defend our families. We will never surrender. We again find ourselves at a defining moment in history. And again, we're called to step forward and defend America. But this time from the unrelenting threat of radical liberalism, an ideology that seeks to centralize power and rule over the entire world, that not only hates that we are free, but seeks to annihilate all freedom. I strongly urge everyone to help those good people running for office, especially in your towns right now. Municipal elections are in November. The people that share our desire to preserve the freedoms that we cherish and to restrict government in every way possible. Look around you. These are your brothers and sisters who will be with you through whatever is coming. It's our time and our turn to act. You are all here today because you've heard that calling. You know what's at stake. Work relentlessly and never, ever give up. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Matt O'Brien. In our battle to save our country, it is important to remember why we are who we are and why we believe what we believe. It's important to remember that we are not just conservatives or just Republicans. We're not just voters on the right. We're more than that. We cherish liberty. We cherish our freedoms. We cherish the ability to speak freely and assemble. We cherish the ideas that not only built this country, but held it together for so long. We do not take for granted our right to bear arms. We do not take for granted our right to privacy. We do not take for granted as a country our right to national sovereignty. In a few short moments, you'll be hearing from someone who has had these values instilled within him since the first time he voted. At age 18, he registered as a Republican. He believes that limited government, personal responsibility, and the need for fiscal responsibility with regards to government spending are invaluable. He is an avid supporter of individual liberty and the Constitution, as well as the Second Amendment. He is a member of the NRA, which the liberals like to call a terrorist organization. By the way, the NRA is responsible for 0 mass shootings. He is a gun owner and is active in the sport. His unyielding defense of constitutional principles thrusts him into the public eye, becoming widely recognized in the state of Connecticut. Please join me in welcoming the 2012 Connecticut Citizens Defense League Legislator of the Year and 2014 NRA Defender of Freedom Award winner, your State Senator, Rob Sampson.
Good afternoon, everyone. That was a damn good bio. I actually had a bio that I wrote and I was going to include, but I'm not going to top that, so I will just leave it there and say a couple of words. People who know me in the legislature know that I'm probably the most loquacious or talkative person that serves in the General Assembly. And that's because I can't manage to keep my mouth shut when people are trying to do terrible things to my constituents. I've been involved in many a scrape, many a pitched battle in the Connecticut General Assembly, including that battle over the massive gun control bill that was passed in the wake of that terrible tragedy in Sandy Hook. Since then, there's been countless other issues, from budgets to illegal immigration, you name it. But I've done my best to try and stand for liberty and for the principles that made this country great. I founded the Conservative Caucus back in 2014. But today, my focus, more than anything, is to teach as many people as I can, my friends, my neighbors, and people that I meet on the street, what it means to be an American. Because I think more than anything, that is what is at stake and what we are losing. We are all here today because I think we all recognize that it is more important now than ever to be defenders of the U.S. Constitution. So I'm going to cover some territory that was already covered by the previous speakers, but I want to put it in a little bit different context. I'm going to try and give you tools to take away from today to help teach people how to be Americans, why it's important, and the value of it. So it was already mentioned that the Constitution was written to replace the Articles of Confederation and to more firmly establish the United States as a nation, and also in keeping with the principles contained in our original founding document, the Declaration of Independence. And finally, to establish and guarantee that America is a country for free people. More specifically, the Bill of Rights is that guarantee. And you should explain it to every person that you come in contact with when you meet them and you are discussing the concept of being an American, that the Bill of Rights is not rules for the people. It is rules for the government, effectively restricting the government from interfering with the natural rights that we are all born with. It was also mentioned that we, America, our constitutional principles are under assault, and they have been for some time. But I think we are at a serious crossroads, ladies and gentlemen. It is so critically important for us to understand our history and the principles contained in the Declaration of Independence and how the Constitution establishes our system of laws in keeping with those principles. So I know this is a constitutional awareness rally, but I knew a lot of people would talk specifically about the Constitution. So I want to talk about the Declaration of Independence, because we cannot understand our Constitution or the Bill of Rights unless we understand the Declaration. And luckily, the founders, they wrote it all down for us. I don't want to go into a whole history of the American Revolution, but I think everyone here knows that the Declaration of Independence is exactly that. It's a document that explains to the entire world, a candid world it was mentioned, that the colonies were separating from England because of the bad acts and deeds of the terrible King George. And you can read through the Declaration of Independence and you can see all the individual itemized grievances the colonists had and why they were driven to the ends that they were. And the situation was obviously very dire, since those brave souls who signed the Declaration were undoubtedly certain to face a terrible fate if they were captured by the British. It's worth looking up, by the way. There were 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. 5 of them were tortured by the British before they died. A total of 9 died during the Revolutionary War. 11 had their homes ransacked or burned, and others lost their children. Who here knows how the Declaration of Independence ends? Anyone? We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. These are mostly men of a decent and fortunate means, and they led good lives. So why did they do it? Possibly it was because they were intelligent and educated men who had studied history and knew there was an opportunity for a better way. And I like to think that they did it for us, the people that would come later in America. So before I get any more misty-eyed about our founders, which I am definitely prone to do, I'm going to try and get to the point of my remarks today, which is to share 3 valuable principles we should all know and be prepared to teach and explain to help educate our neighbors. The first one, and of course the wind is not cooperating with my notes, is the idea of created equal. So we've heard it a couple times today. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That kind of means obvious, not exactly, but for our purposes I think obvious is good enough. That all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So what does created equal mean? Are we equal? I don't think so. There's all kinds of people here today. Some shorter, taller, more wealthy, smarter. So of course not. So was Thomas Jefferson an idiot? I don't think so. So what did he mean? And what does that sentence mean in our most precious founding document that lays out what our country is going to be about? It lays out the premise of human equity, that we all have equal individual natural rights that are not based on what groups we belong to. And I'm going to go back to that in a few minutes, so please remember it. It's based on the notion that we are born with natural rights and not what group we are in. It also means that we're born equal in the eyes of the law. It also means that our minds, our bodies, and our labor, the effort that we put in, all belong to us as individuals and not to our government. It's a whole separate issue, and maybe if I come to another one of these things I can talk about it more. But it's interesting to note that Abraham Lincoln brought this same set of words up during the Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we all know those on the left that are determined to undermine our founders. But here's an example where on the exact issue of slavery, Lincoln chose to reference the words that began our country. So the second principle is limited self-government. The very idea that government is responsible and accountable to the people themselves. It says right in the Declaration that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And of course it goes on to say that the people have the right to alter or abolish that government if it doesn't meet those ends. So I just said it, so hope someone was listening. What is the purpose of government? That's right, to secure our natural rights. To secure these rights, it also says the government requires the consent of the governed, which basically means that no person has authority over another. And incidentally, that extends to another very important principle, that no one has the right to the wealth or work of another person. And finally, no one is exempt from our laws. Under the Constitution, we have the rule of law. And the final principle I want you guys to walk away with today is the notion of capitalism. Capitalism, Ron? That's not in the Declaration. That's not in the Constitution. Yes, it is. What is capitalism? I have a friend that refers to capitalism as the only moral socioeconomic system devised by man. And I think he's right. And people are going to argue with this, but I believe capitalism is established in our founding documents. The definition of capitalism is where a free people, pursuing their own individual happiness and pursuits, use their ability to produce, whether it's products or services, so they can exchange with others, also doing the same thing, producing for the purpose, all for the purpose of improving their own lives. The result is a moral system where no one gets to take the work of another. It benefits hard work and leads to unparalleled prosperity. I always say that the greatest period of prosperity in human history was the first 150 years of America. And you can look around and think about all the things that were invented at that time here in this place. From the telephone to the radio to the automobile, indoor plumbing, you can go on and on. And it is because we had capitalism as part of our country. So again, why is it so important today to be defenders of the Constitution? And it's because, yes, these uniquely American principles have been under assault. Everyone knows how divided our country is, and we may in fact be at the crossroads that Ben Franklin described about whether we're going to keep our republic. So it's important to understand why our founding principles are under assault and by whom. I don't know, the paper blew away. Just kidding. The short answer, forces within, who have now taken over one of our major political parties, the Democrats. I want to say something really quick, by the way. If there are any Democrats here today or Democrats watching this, I want you to know that I'm not talking about any individual person. I'm talking about the party itself. And I have a favor to ask you, which is to get a hold of your political party and tell them that they need to go back to being Americans, because the leadership of the Democrat Party has long since left the notion of America. And it's sad because it wasn't always this way. Historically, both parties, Democrats and Republicans, were much closer together. And they agreed on basic American ideas and principles. You know, of course, they disagreed and spent their time on disputes over how much government involvement there should be, the size of the safety net, how we're going to handle our foreign relations. But there was always at least a focus on legitimate public policy and a respect for American values. Unfortunately, today, that concept, the idea of focusing on legitimate public policy, is just simply inconsistent with the modern Democratic Party business model. Socialism, for lack of a better word. Or at least big government redistributing wealth and policy via identity politics, and an effort to discourage individual freedom in exchange for temporary safety and security. It's a polite form of slavery, induced by ignorance and apathy. And sadly, it's the fruits of labor and of capitalism that have created the comfortable environment that we live in that is allowing it to happen. Their goal today is to rig the game to win elections and ultimately complete power and control. And that is why we see our constitutional principles being eroded every day. Just a couple of examples. The First Amendment. Myself and State Senator Joe Markley have been fighting with the state government, the State Elections Enforcement Commission, about what we are allowed to put in our campaign mailers. Can you believe it? It's political speech, the most protected type of speech that there is. The Second Amendment. I don't even need to come up with an example. Not a day goes by that there is not some threat to the Second Amendment. Lately, more and more attacks have been on due process, the Fourth Amendment, the Kavanaugh hearings. Mark mentioned the red flag laws. The whole concept of innocent until proven guilty is at stake in this country. And we cannot lose any of these protections. Today, the Democrat Party's method for maintaining power is in direct contradiction to and inconsistent with American principles. A tactic that they like to use is to highlight an unpopular set of circumstances to convince people that their rights aren't really that important. And I'm going to give you some examples. And this is for us to watch out for, so we know when to interject and say, you should know why we have these principles. First one, when it comes to political speech, a lot of people will say, well, wouldn't it be better to have rules about campaign ads to prevent the nastiness and the personal attacks? On firearms, on the Second Amendment, they would say, wouldn't we all be safer if there were more rules for people to obtain guns? Or even better if we could just get rid of all guns together. On the issue of due process, they will say, how could we take a chance that that accused person may commit another heinous act, whether they committed the one in question or not? And sadly, these questions often receive a favorable response. And that's because they elicit strong emotions from people, despite how dangerous they are to the rights of individuals. The modern Democratic Party is pursuing the absolute authority of the government power and a willingness to discard the rights of individuals in favor of various constituency groups that can be manipulated by government benefits or by developing policies, and you can name the groups. I mean, it's, used to be simply class warfare, but now it is race, it is sexual orientation, it is town by town. You name it, they will put you into a category or a group and pit you against your neighbors. It is this identity politics that is tearing at the fabric of our nation. And it's also making it very hard to survive as a Republican in a world where the public has largely forgotten the value of freedom. So what can we do to preserve our republic? I think the Republican Party is still the only viable choice, and that's why I've chosen to run for office as a Republican. And partly because as long as I'm there, I have the ability to influence what the Republican Party stands for. But I know they're imperfect, and not counting the mistakes that some make willfully. We don't have candidates in the city sometimes, and there's always a lack of resources to reach the whole segments of the population. So that means it's up to us, the people that are here today, to teach other people, regular Americans like us, to teach other regular Americans the principles that we've just discussed. So please, take that with you. Teach everyone you know the principles that we just talked about. Teach them that our founding documents are not racist, that they establish that all men are equal in the eyes of the law. Teach them that the answer to almost every policy problem is to shrink government and let the free market work. Teach them about the importance and value of capitalism, which is the other integral part of our greatness. Teach them that mob rule is dangerous and the things we need to protect are the unpopular things. And finally, teach them that these are the reasons why we live in the greatest country on earth, and that none of us should ever take it for granted. Thank you all for being here today and standing with me in defense of our nation and for the principles that we all love and believe in. God bless America.
One more time for your state Senator Rob Sampson. Patriots, I'd like to turn our attention to a real crisis. And while the left may call this low-hanging fruit, I'd like to call it proof that socialism is one of the leading causes of starvation, genocide, and oppression. Venezuela, oh, you're gonna bring up Venezuela? That's too easy. Venezuela, once a very prosperous and wealthy nation, is in shambles. Many Venezuelan citizens have been reduced to mere subjects, fighting for food in the back of a garbage truck. By the way, does anybody want that to happen to this country? No. I didn't think so. When push came to shove, the people of Venezuela rallied. They tried to organize. They tried to take their country back. And while I do not enjoy giving credit to a fake news network like MSNBC, in this instance, they were correct. As Venezuelans were rallying in the streets, trying to win back their freedom, they were being chased down and mowed down by military vehicles, leading to MSNBC anchor Kerry Sanders to astutely and perhaps not necessarily knowing what he was saying, point out that since gun ownership is next to impossible in Venezuela, the military is the primary entity with firearms, and the military reports to the socialist dictator Nicolas Maduro. Smith pointed out that since Maduro controls the only entity with the guns, he also controls the country. One more time, this happened on MSNBC. Our next speaker is going to stress the importance of our Second Amendment rights. He is the legislative coordinator for the Connecticut Citizens Defense League, the CCDL, a nonpartisan, grassroots organization advocating for the right to keep and bear arms in Connecticut. Formed in 2009 and headquartered in Groton, Connecticut, the CCDL boasts almost 30,000 members statewide as of April 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a high-energy, patriotic welcome to Ray Bevis.
All right, thank you, everyone. As you heard, I'm Ray Bevis. I'm the legislative coordinator with Connecticut Citizens Defense League. You heard what we do, if you're not familiar with us. And like other speakers earlier, and everybody here probably knows, our gun rights are under attack here in Connecticut. In other states, they're under attack. And it's not just our guns they're going after. The guns are just the first part. And remember, they're going after our freedoms. They're going after our liberties. These are the things they are attacking one by one. And guns are just one of them. You don't necessarily have to be a gun owner to believe in gun rights, but you have to support them. You have to support the First Amendment. You have to support the Second Amendment. You have to support the Fourth Amendment. It's all comes down to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, where that's what we're all here for. As we know, many of us know, we know the Second Amendment in Connecticut. Article 1st, Section 15 of the Connecticut Constitution says every citizen has the right to bear arms in defense of himself and the state. It's plain and simple, black and white. That's what it says. That's what we need to defend. That's what we're here for. We need to protect that. One of the things CCDL does, and many of you probably don't know, and Rob and Representative Gail Mastrofrancesco do know, that every year there are literally 30, 40, 50 bills that are anti-gun bills. They are guns that are directly attacking our Second Amendment rights. And thanks to Rob Sampson and Gail Mastrofrancesco and other representatives up there, and with the help of CCDL, a lot of those bills get defeated before they even make it to a committee. But they're there every year, and they come back every single year. So one of the things CCL does is we track those hundreds of bills. Since 2009, we've tracked hundreds of bills and defeated many of them, with thanks of our representatives up at the Capitol. CCL also has brought numerous litigation against the state, and also we filed numerous amicus briefs nationwide in other Second Amendment cases. Just things we do behind the scenes, and that's very important. Today we talked a lot about the Constitution. I probably can't elaborate much more than the great speakers before me have already talked about. What we need to do is we need to get involved. Everyone needs to get involved. We're involved here today, but when we leave here today, it's just not today. We're just not attending one rally. We need to continue this fight. This fight is a daily fight that will continue. And everyone here knows the importance of the Constitution, but we need to defend it. We need to preserve it. And one way we could do that is at the polls in November. It's very important that we get to the polls, do your part protecting the Constitution, make sure you're registered to vote. I'm sure everyone here is registered to vote. Make sure everyone in your house that can vote is registered to vote. Carry a few voter registration cards with you. I always have these in my car. We have them at the CCDL booth behind there. Carry a few extra in your car. If you happen to come across someone that's not registered, help them register. And even go a step further. Take that registration card for them and mail it for them. Put the stamp on it for them. This way you know that it actually got done. Make sure your family and friends get to the polls on election day. It's very important that they get there. If anyone can't get a ride, make sure they're there. Just organize a local gathering of your friends on election day. Carpool there. Maybe go out to coffee or dinner after they vote. Bring your kids. A lot of times, the kids and the youth aren't engaged, and it's our fault for not teaching them. So bring your kids to vote, let them know it's their civic duty, let them understand the process, and this way when they grow up they can show it on and pass it on to their kids. Every year I bring my kids to the polls with me, and I'm saddened to see that maybe one or two other families do the same thing. I wish I could see a lot more families bring their children to the polls, get them in the habit of voting, get them civically engaged, let them understand what's going on in their town. Help on campaigns. This is a big one. Campaigns and candidates need your help. If you don't have time to volunteer, open up your wallets, open up your pocketbooks, give money to the candidates that are going to support your cause. Give the money to the candidates that believe in the Constitution. Just volunteering a few hours on a campaign could really make the difference. Especially on the local elections, a lot of candidates lose by 5, 10, 15 votes. They just had one extra volunteer for a couple hours on that campaign. That could mean the difference between winning or losing. Local elections do matter. As we know, our constitutional rights are eroding away at the local level too. We've talked about the federal level. We talked about the state level. In this state, every single month, there's a town trying to pass a firearms ban or further firearms restrictions. And I could go down the list. Southington's a great example. Not allowed to have firearms in parks in this town. It goes on and on. Every year there's in Kent next month, there's a town that's trying to pass a ban on gun stores in their town. They don't want gun stores in their town. They say gun stores promote violence. We don't want gun violence in our town. So they're trying to ban gun stores. And it goes on. I could go on all day with the list of town ordinances, regulations. But what happens is what you need to do is get the right people elected this November, your local town governments, and get the right people elected so they can protect your rights. And then we all do a lot. Everyone here, I appreciate everyone here, but we need to do a little bit more. Just what we do here today is not enough. You need to do more. Engage your friends, engage the people you normally wouldn't engage to get them to be wakened up. Get them to be woke. And let's go. We got to get these people, your coworkers, talk about the Constitution, talk about guns. They might not necessarily be gun owners, and that's fine, but they need to understand the importance of an armed society to make sure that our freedoms stay intact. With that said, CCL does have 33,000 members strong in Connecticut. If you're interested in joining, we have our memberships forms back there at our booth. Like I said, you do not need to be a gun owner to join CCDL. Our membership is free for today. So our membership's free for all the time, but it's just today we're giving it away for free. So, but join CCDL as long as you believe in the Constitution, as long as you believe in the Second Amendment. We're there to help you, and we need your support. So thank you very much. I'll be back there if anyone has questions. Thank you.
But it's only continued to spread. Democrats leaving the Democrat Party. It's only continued to spread due to the fine work of Brandon Strzok and those who join him in the walkaway movement that has taken the nation by storm. Our next speaker, whom I've been working with for the last few months as a part of a nationwide group known as United for Trump 2020, is a member of the Walkaway campaign and has accomplished some fantastic achievements with the organization as of late. She is a lifelong resident of Connecticut and lives in neighboring Plainville with her husband, David, and she is here today to share her Walkaway story. Walkaway is a true grassroots campaign started by Brandon Strzok, made up of more than 500,000 people who have walked away from the Democrat Party. In addition to volunteering on Walkaway events, she was endorsed by the Plainville, Connecticut RTC as a candidate for the Board of Education. She won a primary this month and will proceed to the municipal election in November. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rachel Buchanan.
Hello, everybody. Shawn, that was a wonderful welcome. And for those of you who don't know Shawn, he traveled from Long Island today to be with us. So I thank you so much, Shawn, for doing that. Let's give him a round of applause for emceeing our event today. I'll tell you a really quick cool story about how I've come to be part of this group. Through activism, starting online, I think one of the speakers spoke about this earlier. I'm actually meeting Shawn today for the first time in person, but we have worked on many grassroots movements together. So through being connected on Facebook and speaking out, that was a way to make the connections that I have here today. Lisa, who was also a walk away, connected me with James, who brought us together with Shawn, and we have now been part of 3 grassroots movements together, and we keep growing and growing. So I just want to take note that if you think you're just one person and who are you to come out and speak, you are a citizen of the United States, and the voice that we have and our personal story is worthy of sharing, because you never know who's listening and who might hear it and who you might connect with. So I just wanted to thank the organizers of this event, Valerie, for your dedication and effort. What a beautiful place for us to be today, all of these incredible patriots. So thank you so much, everyone, for putting us together in this place today. So thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you. I'm nervous, so bear with me. Can I take this off? Okay. I won't break it. So, as it was mentioned before, I was asked here today to share my #walkaway story. For those of you who might not know what #walkaway is, I'll just give you a brief background. #walkaway is a grassroots movement that was started by a gentleman by the name of Brandon Strzok. Brandon was raised in Nebraska, conservative area, but moved in his early years to Manhattan, where he is a hairdresser. Brandon was a true liberal. He voted for Hillary Clinton, and when she won, he was on social media asking, why? What will we do now? The country has been destroyed. This evil man is in office. He mocked a disabled reporter. I need to hold all of you Trump voters accountable for your actions, and I need someone, and I demand that someone explain to me how you could vote for this man. So he's putting this out on social media because he is fully devastated at Donald Trump's election. Luckily, one of his babysitters from back home in Nebraska sent him privately a compilation of a video that had been put together called Donald Trump, Debunking Donald Trump Mocking a Disabled Reporter. If you haven't seen this, check it out. It's Donald Trump doing the same exact hand gestures and the voice and the whole thing that he did when he mocked the disabled reporter, about 5 or 6 different people. But it wasn't mocking a disability, it was mocking someone who had lied or had deceived. So Brandon gets sent this video. Here he is sitting in Manhattan. I want you to picture it. Manhattan hairdresser, okay? Liberal as liberal can be. He's watching this video, and as he describes it, it's very powerful because he sees it. He has to watch it a couple times, but there's a moment, for those of you who were never a liberal before, it's a very painful, disorientating experience, because when you see it before your eyes, but you believe something else in your heart and mind, it's like our programming is, we literally deprogram. It's like a glitch that happens. So Brandon went to bed glitching that night and woke up the next morning and said, okay, you know what? Donald Trump is evil. This can't be true. He watches the video again, and there it is, the truth. He wasn't mocking a disabled reporter. He was mocking a liar. The Band-Aid was ripped off. So Brandon took action, and he made another video. It was a professional video this time. And he wrote down all of the reasons why he decided that he needed to speak out about why he was leaving liberalism. He saw the truth right in front of his eyes and had to speak out to others. So he made a 6-minute video. If you haven't seen it, please check it out on YouTube. It's the original #walkaway video.
And Brandon talks about how he left and why he left. He walked away from identity politics, he walked away from hate, he walked away from bigotry, he walked away from fake news, and he called out to other people. He said, if I feel this way, others might feel this way too. So if you're out there, Democrat liberals, and you feel like you've been lied and manipulated too as well, make your own video testimonial and share your hashtag walkaway story. That was May of 2018. Since then, across all social media platforms we have that we know of, 500,000, 500,000 walk-away participants. 500,000. Let that set in. Those are just the ones that talk out and participate. These aren't the friends. These aren't the watchers. We have marched on DC. We have held minority-related town hall style events for the LGBT community, the Black community. We're having a women's town hall event coming up in Nashville. And Brandon is starting a college tour this summer as well to get out to our young people to have a conversation with them. When we talk about walking away, this isn't about political affiliation. This isn't about Democrat. This isn't about being a Republican. This isn't independent, unaffiliated, conservative. This is about being an American and standing in truth and reality. I had the pleasure of being at Trinity College here in Connecticut, where Brandon came to speak. It was a very small, intimate event, so awesome. The Young Republicans hosted him. An opposing group on campus came to the event. It was a Hispanic group on campus. There had been some type of beef between the two groups. So instead of protesting, the group came to the event to hear what Brandon had to say. It was clear that, they weren't there in support. I watched these two groups talk to one another after the event. They sat and had a conversation, a debate. There were some arguments, there were some tears, there were feelings. But once they were able to get past all of that emotion, they realized that there had just been a miscommunication between the two groups on campus. I left that. I was just there to volunteer, help set up a table, be a walk-away volunteer. But luckily, I got to witness something very important. Our young people do want to talk to one another. They are open. Do not discount them. And when I left, it was the two groups shaking hands and planning to do an event together. They didn't agree with everything. There was still, the beef was settled, but there was, they were not on the same page, but they were willing to go out together and present the pages. And that's what I feel compelled to do, is talk about the truth. I'm just one person. I am not a political expert. The only thing that I'm an expert in is standing in my own truth and getting out from behind the keyboard. So my personal hashtag walkaway story happened a year before walkaway became a thing. So I guess I'm technically a walk with. So I'll just give you a quick high level overview of what that looked like. I get emotional about it because it's been, sorry. Sorry, it's been a lot. So leading up to the 2016 election, I knew that something had changed. The 10 years before the election, I did not pay attention to what was going on. I made a fatal mistake to trust that the people that we voted into office actually had our back. So during this time, I actually lived here in this beautiful town of Southington with my husband and my stepdaughter, very involved in Strong Elementary School and her PTO, and I was coaching competitive cheerleading, which was a full-time job, and I had my sights set on my family, and I was trusting the process. I knew we had a constitution to protect us, all was well, right? Well, here come the two candidates. There used to be this, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you've seen it, there's so much online, but there was this meme, and it was 2 yard signs, and one said nope and noper. Okay, that was me. I was the nope and noper girl. So I made a decision as a 25-year registered Democrat that the party affiliation was irrelevant. I needed to understand who and what I was voting for. I needed to know exactly what was going on. So every night after my family went to bed, I did my due diligence and I studied both candidates. Started with Hillary. I'm not going to get into that because I won't waste any more time or breath on her. We can come back to here when they put her in cuffs, and then we can have that celebration. But what I'll let you know is that my research came to hardline no. So to be fair, because people who really want to see truth have to be fair and balanced, so I had to do as much research on Donald Trump. Now, I'm 45 years old, huge fan of hip hop, and so Donald Trump was the guy in all the hip hop videos. So I'm like, okay, so, all right, he's the guy in television. But when I went in deeper, he had been very consistent in another message. There was another piece of Donald Trump that I didn't know about. He was a patriot. He had been offering solutions for the last 30 years on how to help and protect our nation. People asked him, he cared. So I was very interested in that. So fast forward to the election day. Lifelong registered Democrat. Good Democrat too. Inclusion and diversity trainer. I mean, I won't even go down, but I was a good Democrat. The only time I voted, broke the party line, was at the local level. Straight blue. I walk in, we use a little Sharpie in Plainville. My hand was shaking. I really felt like I was gonna throw up and the whole world was spinning, and I said, oh my God. I didn't know until I got in there what was gonna happen. And with shaking marker, I voted for Donald J. Trump. I came out and called my husband and was like, you're never gonna believe what I just did. And he was like, I know what you just did because you're smart. When you see truth, you can't unsee it. Brandon, the founder of the Walkaway campaign, has said this numerous times. And for those of us who had been part of the problem, because I was part of the problem, when you see it, you can't unsee it. And one of two things happens in that moment. When we're all here to support and defend our Constitution and our voting rights, but to do that, we have to understand the other side. The other side believes just as strongly as we do that they're correct. You need to really, really get this. But they don't believe it on anything based below a surface level. Now, I'm going to admit something here today. I worked on Ned Lamont's, I'm coming out fully. I worked on Ned Lamont's first gubernatorial campaign. Thank you. I left work and I made phone calls for Ned Lamont. And if you asked me then, if one person had taken the time to say, Rachel, why are you spending your time doing that? I honestly would not have been able to give you an answer based in any specifics. I was just being a good Democrat. So when you see it, you can't unsee it. So today, how I've decided to spend our time, I'm certainly not the one to educate you on the United States Constitution. We have an amazing panel of speakers that have done that. But what I can tell you is two things happen when you see the truth with liberals. Your programming either malfunctions and you have to reject the truth and hang on to the fluff, orange man bad. You just have to hang on and reject it. Or you have to sit in a really hard moment of accountability. And this happened to me one day. I found Brandon's video online because my researching never stopped. I never quit. I still kept going down the rabbit hole because I had so much to learn. They didn't teach it to me in school. I went back, God, now I'm back like 300 years, but I went backwards in time in our history to have to understand how we got here today. When I saw Brandon's video, there's moments that change you. And I thought, oh my God, I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. And I found a tribe of like-minded people who were going through the same experience, because your whole world changes. It feels like someone just pulls the rug right out from underneath you, and everything that you thought was true, it just wasn't. So you have to go through a series of emotions. I've been lied to, I've been manipulated. Someone did this to me on purpose. I have been used as I was used. I was used as an inclusion and diversity trainer. I was used because I had a good heart and had emotional feelings about things and just wanted the world to be a nice, great, lovely place. When I saw Brandon's video, it brought me literally to my knees, and I said a prayer, and I knew in that moment, it was so powerful, I was by myself, and I knew in that moment that I would die for this country, defending it, no matter what that looked like. I'm not a soldier, I am just an American using my voice, and I will stand and defend it in any way possible, even if that means standing out here and exposing myself, even if that means walking around Stop and Shop with a Trump hat on my head, and my pharmacist asking me if he could rip the hat off my head and burn it. I have to think when I'm walking around with my niece and her friends, should I put a Trump hat on? Am I jeopardizing their safety? These are not things that we should have to think. When Obama was in office, how many of you were out getting outrageous and trying to attack your neighbor? You suffered in silence. Or you suffered with one another. Now, this is something that I have to share with you because it's very important. We have to come out from behind the keyboards. Conservatives are very polite. You know what? I kind of learned that I've secretly been a conservative my whole life. I say the left left me. I didn't change. I changed in the normal amount that people do through age, and younger people are more liberal. There was the natural progression of things that happened as well. But I really didn't change. I can look at what's presented in front of me, regardless of who's presenting it, find out if it's true, and base my decision based on that, not based on somebody's last name or an emotional response. And I just wanted to come out here today and let all of you know that there are 500,000 of us out here using our voices, admitting we were part of the problem, and we are coming up with solutions. Now, what are we walking to? Freedom. We're walking to maintain our freedom. We are walking to the fundamental concepts that our country was built upon. We're not going somewhere new. It feels new. But actually, in my research and due diligence and learning my history, we are just preserving what we have. One of the things that I noticed, I've been a coach, not any longer, I haven't coached in the last year or two, but working with young people and staying in touch with them and watching what they post on social media. They are hungry for information, but we have to think about who's giving them the information. Where are they getting the information? There's a difference between being polite and aggressive. We don't have to act like we don't have to be extremist and insane. I've learned, because I got preachy, for the first year, it was hardcore typing on the keyboard and, you gotta spread, now I know everybody needs to know. But I've really brought it back and remembered I was the problem. I was that person. So now I've learned to ask questions. That's an interesting post. Can you explain why you feel that way? Oh, is that true? What are you basing that upon? So with our young people, we need to remember to have the conversation, but there's a way to do it. And I think everyone here today understands that and the importance of it. I want to let you know that the #WalkAway campaign is going to be working relentlessly between now and the 2020 election. Brandon Strauch actually had the privilege of opening up at Trump's Cincinnati rally, and it was just amazing. He has been on Lara's Trump show many times, and that core team of people, I just want to let you know, those volunteers, Brandon doesn't get paid. He is full grassroots on donations to support his efforts. That man is in a different place every single day, doing about 6 different things to ensure the preservation of our Constitution. Please check out the #WalkAway campaign. Come to our table, get a button, represent, make a donation, please, to continue our efforts. I'm working with the special events team now. I'm so excited for #WalkAway, and it's volunteerism that is a full-time job. If anyone wants to participate or get more involved, I would love to hear from you, because we need all the help we can get. I can sit here and say that, but at the end of the day, what is 4 more years? Donald Trump is a speed bump to something very serious on the other side. We really, really have to get honest about what might happen if someone else besides him gets into office right now, and what that will look like for us. So what #WalkAway did for me was reinforce what I knew in my heart after doing my research, which was I will defend my country. I love it. That's not a bad thing. I will not be tricked into thinking that I'm of mixed race and I've been called a KKK Klan lady, real talk. My childhood best friend, my best friend from childhood unfriended me on Facebook. Like, I mean, come on now. It is a very emotional experience when you walk away, but I have landed on solid ground thanks to all of the patriots like you, and I will not be stopped, and I will not shut up, and I am now running for my first local office in Plainville. Shawn mentioned, I'm so excited. I was endorsed by the Plainville Republican Town Committee, which was fabulous, and I'm so grateful, an amazing group of people there. And I had a primary by an excellent candidate who I have come to like and respect very much, and going on to the municipal election. This changed things for me though, because now I feel like I have to like modify how I talk, and nope, not gonna happen. I am not asking anyone to walk away from Democrats. I did personally, because I personally am a conservative in my heart. I just didn't know it. But no one has to walk away from the Democrat Party. How about this? How about a Democrat stand up and take back your party? Why is no one doing this? Why is there not one candidate as a Democrat that you could say, that person? Not one. So I would like to just let folks know this isn't about pulling people, from Democrat to Republican. It's about coming back to center, getting real, being honest, and talking about the truth and reality, and standing side by side as Americans saying enough is enough. We are going to take back our country. So that is my #WalkAway story. Please check out the campaign. See me at the table. If you have any questions, I am welcome to answer. And my name is Rachel Buchanan. I was part of the problem, and I'm here to be part of the solution. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
She just killed it. Give it up for Rachel Buchanan. Patriots, I'm going to ask you another favor. I know that gets people in trouble. Let's just recycle the joke, but I'm going to ask you another favor. I want to get interactive just for a minute. If I told you that I was running for office, but I was going to take all your money, or take some of your money in taxes, and spend it on something that you don't want me to spend it on, would you vote for me? No, right? Probably not. If I told you that, wait, where have we heard this before? You can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan, but then I let you know that that's probably a lie, and your healthcare costs are going to increase and your quality is going to decrease, all while giving undocumented aliens the same services at no cost, would you vote for me? No, right? What if I told you that I was going to try and take even more of your money through astronomical taxes? Because this time we're going to do it right. Even though our government is so inefficient that it costs them $20 to spend $1, would you vote for me? The answer is no. No. The answer is no. Why? Because it doesn't make sense, right? It makes no sense. The problem is that the modern day Democrat Party, and I like the specification, and I like the way we're prefacing it, that it's not all Democrats, it's the modern day Democrat Party. They're not as honest about what they really plan to do because they can't be. You just told me why they can't be. It makes no sense. Our next speaker is going to be talking to you about the very idea that thrust Thomas Paine's name into immortality. Common sense. And he was born and raised in Connecticut, and over the years he has come to find a lack of common sense in politics, and I'm sure he hasn't had to look that hard to find a lack of common sense in politics. With a very unique perspective, that's what I'm talking about. With a very unique perspective as a husband and a father of 3, he offers a no-nonsense story of how life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness has changed in our society. Patriots, please welcome Rodney Ragucci.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Good. How you all?
So, my wife asked me to start writing this speech, and come up with a topic. My concerns for America, our children, our constitutional rights, and my mind started going in a million places because every day we're faced with new challenges and new situations that question whether or not we really are fighting for the right thing. But I soon realized that all the problems had come down to one common thread, and that common thread was common sense. So I decided to search the internet. I searched for the word common sense, and the results were pretty interesting. The first thing I found was that in 1775, Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense, a pamphlet, I figured it out, a pamphlet that openly challenged the authority of British government and the royal monarchy at the time. In very plain language, it helped early American colonialists decide to vote for independence from England. It was a call to those who would listen, a call to unify all patriots in simple terms, and they reacted. It was their original intuition that told them that something was not quite right with the countries that they had left behind. They had come to this new land to pursue happiness and soon realized that although there were very many different nationalities, they would all come together as one new nation. Paine used his writing talents to explain that all people are born into a state of equality, that no one man should rule over or above others. Of course, his reference directed to the King of England at the time. He would then go on to write that the people should have a representative government for the colonies. These representatives would be a voice for the common people. These representatives who would be a voice for all of the people, and soon after we developed a system of voting to select those representatives. Imagine 244 years ago, Paine created a pamphlet, that laid the foundation for future Americans to believe in the possibility of a democratic republic. It was his pamphlet that influenced the masses into believing something more was possible, and the pamphlet, Common Sense, was published January 10th, 1776. This pamphlet was so popular with the people that 6 months later, the Declaration of Independence was signed in July of 1776. It's pretty powerful. It sure is, and God bless America for it. But now, I can't help but wonder what he was thinking in the months that led up to him sitting down and writing that pamphlet. I could see a middle-aged man sitting down at a wooden table under candlelight, holding an ink feather in hand, and thinking of the type of country that these new settlers wanted. A country where citizens would come first, and where its residents were free to create a republic of, by, and for the people. So now, as I continue my research, the question comes up, what does common sense really mean today? Who really has it? And after some more searches, I found the original definition. Back in the 14th century, the original meaning of the word common sense, as it was defined like another sense, of like our five senses, sight, smell. It was defined as an internal feeling and was regarded as a common bond that united all other human senses. In other words, it was our intuition, our little voice inside that gives us heart, that tells us that something is not quite right. That's common sense. And as I soon continued to search, I found something alarming, that over time, the meaning of common sense had somehow changed. From its original 14th century meaning, it had evolved and become twisted into something without feeling at all. Today, Wikipedia defines it as sound practical judgment concerning everyday matters, a basic ability to perceive and understand and judge that is shared by nearly all of the people. Not everybody, just nearly some. So I think to myself, this is pretty significant. It has went from an internal sense or feeling into an external judgment. And what's wrong and what's worse
our children are being taught that to be common only matters if it is judged as being socially acceptable. That somehow your intuition doesn't matter. Crazy. Where's the common sense? And I realize that this is the seed that has been planted in our young and has now grown up into entitled teenagers that we see today, fed by giant liberal social media businesses which act like scoreboards for our success and approval in society. They create messages of hate, extreme situations. They invoke political persuasions to get people upset, to fight, or to simply stay online for that next post, all in the name of profits and likes. Most importantly, they have become the standard by which we live our lives. Cyber friendships, posts, and pictures keep our children, who are 8 to 18 on average, 7 hours per day in front of a screen. That screen controlled by liberal social media. Now I realize my children's freedom is gone in a way that they cannot even recognize. This is why we hear people say today, common sense isn't common, or kids have no common sense anymore. It should come as no surprise, because it's not their fault, it's ours. Because we have not gotten enough people out to the polls to change it. People who care about what is really going on in America today. In our state, we have left it up to very liberal, democratic educational system to teach our children. An educational institution with its crown jewel, Common Core. A flawed standard by which children are graded. And even though it's had no proven effectiveness, that children's scores still aren't getting any better, we still keep the same pathetic democratic leadership in office. Between the 7 hours online and the 7 hours our children are in school, they're being brainwashed into believing in open immigration, environmental climate change. My children last week had a walkout for 5 minutes to support environmental climate change because they thought that the environment in the world was going to end in 10 years. This was being taught to them. Boo is right. And a socialist form of government, even worse, while learning to disrespect the President of the United States. Pathetic. Is this what Thomas Paine intended for future generations? Absolutely not. And as I concluded with the research I had done on common sense, I realized the truth. The truth is we need to speak out. We need to vote for new representatives that can explain these founding principles in simple terms, like Thomas Paine did to our founding fathers. In this case, to our children. In conclusion, I'd like to say that all of the people here believe that our children should be taught to love our country, honor our history, and to always
They're trying to silence you. You're good now. You're good now.
I'm good? Sorry. It's kind of hard when you lose your momentum, right? You're in the middle of a speech. So in conclusion, I like to say that, because I think it's important, we believe that children should be taught to love our country, honor our history, and respect our American flag. We stand united for all families that want to protect this land of liberty for their beautiful children, born and unborn. And in the words of our great President Donald J. Trump, together we will fight for all children who deserve to grow up in a nation of builders and dreamers, pioneers and patriots, and all those that recognize common sense is common. Together, we are all united by one fundamental principle, that our nation's first duty must always be to its own citizens first. God bless you. God bless America. Vote Republican. Thank you.
Rodney Ragucci. Okay, we had Rachel talk to us before. about walkaway, which makes our next speaker's topic incredibly relevant and especially important, and a short story to introduce her. During Brett Kavanaugh, we all remember what happened to him and what they're still trying to do to him. I finally changed my party affiliation. It didn't affect how I voted the last couple years, but I finally changed it. As I mentioned before, I was a victim of the liberal indoctrination process known as our education system. I left high school a registered Democrat and an Obama supporter, although lucky for me, during his first election, I was not old enough to vote. When he was reelected, I did not vote for him. Romney was my choice. But up until Kavanaugh had his character wrongfully assassinated, my voter card had a big, ugly Democrat sign on it. That changed, and that changed because I could no longer be a statistic that belonged to them. If there is anyone out there at all who needs to either update their party affiliation or register to begin with to vote, please do so. If you are from a state like the state that I come from, New York, governed by one of the worst governors in the entire country, who just gave himself a pay raise, Andrew Cuomo, he's horrible. That requires you to be a member of a party to vote in its primary, make the change. Our next speaker is here to talk to you about voter registration, among other things, and how important that is. And I'm excited to turn it over to her, as I've seen what she could do with a microphone in her hands. We worked together at a rally in New York City back in March and have been working together in the United for Trump 2020 group ever since. She joined the Republican Party and began her political activism in 2016, inspired by the election, the legitimate election, no collusion, of Donald J. Trump. No collusion, believe me. It's a witch hunt, I have to tell you, it's a witch hunt. She started as the personal assistant to the office manager of the GOP headquarters in Syracuse, New York, where she learned the ropes of the political arena by supporting local candidates by running petitions, phone banking, and organizing events, among many other functions. She is the deputy regional director of the Central New York for Trump and runs all social media for Syracuse, Trump rallies, and CNY social events. She recently relocated to New Milford, Connecticut, where she has been appointed as a new member of the New Milford Republican Committee. Heavily involved in CT 30th State Senate District Republicans group, she is working extremely hard to expand the Republican base through various training seminars to gear up for the crucial 2020 race and beyond. In short, she knows what she's doing, and she's a force to be reckoned with if you're a liberal. Please welcome Lisa Joseph.
How's it going, everyone? What a beautiful, beautiful day to be standing here in celebration of our Constitution and our wonderful President Trump. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. We really appreciate that. Before I get started, I just wanted to introduce Mert Melfa. He is my technical guru. He comes out and he videotapes all of our rallies. All he asks for, because he's such a patriot, is gas money. So if you are willing and able to throw a couple bucks our way to pay Mert's gas, that would be really appreciated. Come over here and see this little guy over here.
Forget my name?
No. What is my name? Lisa. So, I was a walkaway too, but I'm not going to get into that. I am a diehard Trump supporter, and I make it my mission in Connecticut to piss off as many liberals as I can, and I do a really good job. But there are two things that I really want to talk about, which really concerns me about our Constitution and free speech. One is our social media, and the other one is the way we search the internet, Google. How many people out there have had their accounts suspended on Facebook or Twitter for hate speech? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Oh, yeah.
And Instagram, too.
And Instagram. What is hate speech?
Anything a liberal disagrees with.
Right. Anything a liberal disagrees with is considered hate speech.
I hate them.
I see all my friends. I get on and I'm like, hey, I'm back. I'm back from my 30th day ban. And we're all like, high five, high five. Yeah, we've been in Facebook jail. It is all fun and games because we've all been there. But they're now starting to deplatform all independent media. Alex Jones, Laura Loomer, doesn't matter if you agree with them or not. If you don't think they're not coming after everybody until only the government controls the narrative and the state-sponsored national news you look at night runs the government, you're living in la-la land. Once they control the media, control the narrative, and we have no opposing views, they've got us right where they want us. So we need to make sure we tell President Trump, please, President Trump, free us, free our First Amendment from the grip of social media. Now, how many of you people have gone on Google and Googled something like, oh, I don't know, say President Trump, and the word idiot comes up, or anything else? I don't know about you, but I cannot trust Google anymore. They are the left arm of the Democrat Party. Just another way to be able to control what we see and hear. We are bombarded daily, and our Constitution is violated daily by the rich people who own Facebook, who's a liberal, who own Google, who's a liberal, who own Twitter, who's a liberal. I don't know about you, but I'm getting pretty sick of it. So, you know, I don't know how this is all going to shake out. They keep fining these billionaires. Oh, let's fine them a couple bucks. It's like, okay, here's my chump change out of my pocket. So what do? What do we do to stop the erosion of our First Amendment rights? We got to vote. And the only way we're going to be able to vote and win in Connecticut is if we do some serious voter registration. They outstrip us 2-1 in voter registration. And the only way to get this state back is by getting out there and registering voters. Now, I don't know about you, but I do have a few liberal, not really liberal, but more blue dog Democrats left in my life. And after what's happened this week with this other impeachment crap that they're trying to pull, even the moderate Democrats are starting to wake up. So now is the time. If you have any liberal Democrats in your life, or moderate Democrats, or blue dog Democrats, now is the time to have the conversation. Have you had enough of these liberal policies yet? Has your speech been banned enough? Is it time to stand up and take our country back from these control freaks who want to do nothing but have power over our lives? And get them, if you can't get them to register Republican from Democrat because they're afraid, and there are people that are afraid out there, to come out in support of Trump. At least convince them to vote in the polls. Pulling that lever is the only thing that matters in 2020. Because we are going to beat these liberals. And they are going to come after us harder than ever before. And we are going to have to stand there and toe the line. We are going to have to stand there and take the brutal attacks. And guess what? I'll be standing in the front line. I will not let liberal policies silence me, ever. And I know the people that come to these rallies, we are the die-hard constitutionalists. We are the die-hard Trump supporters. We are the die-hard Republicans that's willing to stand up for the rest of our party who is too afraid. And I know that we're going to win in 2020 at the rate we're going, especially if Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, Hiawatha, if she is the candidate, because I do believe Biden's going down. He can't even put two sentences together. I can't even understand him. I have to get drunk in order to understand what he's saying. Only a drunk person can understand that craziness coming out of his brain.
His dentures fell out. You see that?
Dentures fell out, yeah. Well, the liberals have no one to lead them. No one to lead their socialist agenda but people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. And I don't know about you, but I like to walk my dog and not eat it. I don't know about the rest of you. So I know it's been a very long day today, and I really appreciate everybody coming out. And, you know, we just got to keep doing what we're doing. Even if nobody hears us, even if we're just in our own little bubble here, and even if only our friends who are already Trump supporters, that's the only people that hear us. There is always a chance that we will get that one person on the fence that will go do some research. Let's Google Trump rallies, or let's Google this. Well, I wouldn't Google it. I'd probably DuckDuckGo it. We have a chance if we keep speaking out and not letting them silence us. We will get more Americans on board. We really will. I really have faith in that. I really believe that most Americans are asleep. Most Americans, they don't realize what's going on. I mean, we're $3 billion in deficit in the Connecticut state. Does that affect me personally? Do I see it in my day-to-day? Oh my God, we're $3 billion in deficit. Does that affect me? No. No. Who thinks about that on a day-to-day basis? Nobody. Nobody. When we have no money left and our credit is gone, we might start to feel the pain, right? You know, we just have to keep going. And I know, you know, I get tired sometimes. I get really tired fighting with the liberals. I get really tired of hearing the stupidest things that they can say come out of their mouths. And I want to give up. I just want to be like everyone else and just tune everything out and just, you know, get on with my life. Then I look at my two beautiful children and I realize that if I give up and I stick my head in the sand and I don't do what I've been doing, my kids, there's a good chance my kids will lose their freedom. And that is so important to me because I don't do this for fame or fortune. I do this because I love my country and I love my children. And I want my children the same freedoms that I have. So, in closing, don't listen to what the fake news media tells you. Don't Google anything. Try to find something else. And for heaven's sakes, if you get banned on Facebook, get the badge, baby. Have a great day.
That's Lisa Joseph. For those of you who don't know her, give it up for Lisa. Okay, we're going to close this thing out. Before we do, I just want to point out a few things and echo a few things that Lisa had said. I see hats. The baseball jersey, I have that, by the way. I love it. We've got flags and shirts. We've got our American flag, which, by the way, never appeared in the Democrat debate. We've got Revolutionary Row back here. Don't tread on me, and the Betsy Ross flag that they've demonized and said is a racist symbol. This is what we're up against. This is what we're fighting against. This is why when we take to the polls in 2020, you have to take 10 people with you. This is why when we talk about our intentions in 2020, we have to make it known what we're fighting for and make sure that we are denouncing the just inaccurate labels that are thrust upon us by CNN and MSNBC, by Antifa, which is, by the way, it's not anti-fascist, it's anti-First Amendment. That's what Antifa stands for. And I want to make it clear, I'm not a racist. I'm not a neo-Nazi. My father's Jewish. It would be really hard for that to be the case. I'm not any of those things. I believe in liberty. I believe in freedom, the right to bear arms, the right to privacy. I believe in a limited government, because when government is small, liberty thrives. Liberty's on life support, but she's not dead yet. And it's up to us to save her in 2020, and we're counting on everybody that's here to step off the sidelines, take to the front lines. As Dan Bongino says, these are new rules that we play with now, and those are that we win and they lose. And that's what we have to do in 2020. Before we close, I'm going to turn it over one more time to Ashley Baird. She is going to lead and sing God Bless America for all of us today before we go. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for the support. Ladies and gentlemen, Ashley Baird.
I know everybody knows the words, so make sure you join in with me. Honey, you're not going to come up and sing?
I'll sing from here. You can't hear me that way.
Okay, got it.
Why do storm clouds gather far across the sea? Let us all swear allegiance to a land that's still free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair, as we raise up our voices in the air with this solemn prayer. God bless America. God, please save America today. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her